Welcome to this session on the school lunch meal pattern. Schools and residential facilities that choose to participate in the program must serve lunch meals meeting the federal nutrition requirements. We are going to identify the meal requirements for lunch in this session. A chart of the lunch meal pattern requirements is provided with this training and is also available on our website. This chart summarizes the meal pattern requirements, listing each component and the portion sizes to be offered for each grade group. If you are new to planning lunch meals, I recommend you print this chart and read through it. The food components and dietary specifications are in the column on the left of the chart, and the required grade groups are displayed across the top. These columns show the minimum amount of food required to be served daily and weekly. These weekly minimums are based on a 5-day week. There are no weekly maximum requirements. There are 3 required grade groups: K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Menus must be planned to meet the requirements for each of these grade groups. The K through 5 and 6 through 8 requirements have overlap, so a menu can be planned for grades K through 8. The same menu can also be planned for grades 9 through 12. However, you need to plan to meet the daily portion sizes since they are larger. This will be covered as we review each of the food components. The lunch meal pattern is based on different food groups, called components. There are required portion sizes based on the specific grade groups, and menus must meet USDA's dietary specifications. These are the 5 components of the lunch meal pattern: meat alternate, fruits, vegetables, grains, and milk. The first component we will discuss is meat alternate. This chart shows the daily and weekly minimum requirements for all grade groups. The minimum daily requirement is the same for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8, a 1-ounce equivalent of meat alternate. The daily requirements for grades 9 through 12 is 2 ounces. Notice the weekly requirements are different for each grade group. Grades K through 5, an ounce equivalent for the week, and for grades 6 through 8, 9 ounces for the week, and grades 9 through 12, 10 ounces for the week. The chart shows the minimum amount to be served. As the menu planner, you have the flexibility to serve more, but should consider the dietary specifications when doing so. To plan a K through 12 lunch menu, you can plan for 2 ounces of meat alternate daily and meet the requirements for all grade groups for the week. Students love to make choices, so if you offer different entree choices, make sure all the entree choices meet the minimum daily requirements. The meat alternate must be served in the main dish or the main dish and one other menu item. For districts not offering entree choices, the same form of meat should not be served more than 3 times a week. Examples of meat alternate are meats, poultry, seafood, cheese, yogurt, eggs, nuts, seeds, dried beans and peas, otherwise known as legumes. Keep in mind, if you serve nuts and seeds, they cannot be counted as more than half of the meat alternate for the daily requirement. And when serving dried beans and peas as the entree item or part of the item, the menu planner must decide if the dried bean or peas will contribute to the meat alternate component or as a vegetable component. They cannot be counted in both components. Both tofu and soy yogurt can be served and credit as a meat alternate. This is a list of meat alternates and how they credit towards the meal pattern requirements. These are available in the lunch meal pattern chart for your reference. Here are some examples of 1 ounce equivalent portions of meat alternate. Cheese credits ounce for ounce. Dried beans and peas, 1/4 of a cup is equivalent to 1 ounce of meat alternate. Cottage cheese, 1/4 of a cup equals 1 ounce. 1 large egg credits as 2 ounces of meat alternate. Peanut butter, 2 tablespoons equal 1 ounce. A 4-ounce yogurt, or a 1/2 cup of yogurt, is equal to a 1 ounce equivalent. And 2.2 ounces of tofu, or a 1/4 of a cup, is equal to 1 ounce equivalent of meat alternate. Some items that you may serve, but do not credit towards the meal pattern requirement, are examples like bacon. It doesn't meet the definition of a meat. Canned chicken noodle soup doesn't contain enough meat or noodles to credit for any component. And cheese sauces and mixes that have no standard of identity. You can serve them, but they count as an extra, unless you have a child nutrition label like a USDA commodity cheese sauce. Combination foods are commonly served in the school meals program. Let's take a minute to discuss them. First of all, what are they? They are food items that contribute to more than one food component towards meeting the meal pattern requirements, depending on the quantity that is in the items. Let's identify which components each of these foods may contribute to. Vegetable beef soup, if it's homemade and I have a recipe showing there is enough meat alternate and vegetables to credit towards meal pattern. A sloppy joe on a bun, with a portion size large enough to credit as a meat alternate, and the bun credits towards a grain. Chicken and noodles, made from a recipe showing there is enough meat alternate and noodles to credit towards the grain. A taco salad can be made to provide enough meat alternate with the meat and cheese. And lettuce and tomatoes to credit towards the vegetable component, and corn chips to credit towards the grain. USDA commodity salsa served along with the taco salad also credits towards the red-orange vegetable component. And for dessert, an apple crisp can provide enough fruit to credit towards a fruit serving or a grain serving if you have a standardized recipe showing there is enough to credit towards each of those components. Next is the fruit component. This chart shows the minimum daily and weekly requirements for the 3 required grade groups. The requirements are the same for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8. You need to plan a 1/2 cup daily, which meets the 2.5 cups weekly requirement. For grades 9 through 12, the daily minimum requirement is 1 cup, and the weekly minimum is 5 cups. Remember, these are the minimum amounts. You may choose to serve more. When choosing canned varieties, select fruit canned in 100% fruit juice, water, or light syrup. Fruit packed in heavy syrup is not allowed. Full-strength juice must be offered, so make sure your juice is 100% fruit juice. Fruit drinks such as fruit cocktails or fruit punch are not 100% juice, therefore they do not credit towards the fruit requirement. At least half of the recommended amount of fruits should come from whole fruits, so no more than half of the fruit offerings in a week may be in the form of juice. Dried fruit credits as twice its volume. So for example, 1/4 of a cup of raisins credits as a half a cup of fruit. And the minimum creditable serving size for fruits is 1/8 of a cup. The importance of adequate and recognizable amounts of fruit must be considered in menu planning in order to ensure you are meeting the meal pattern requirements. Students love to have fresh fruit, and this is a great way to meet the fruit requirement. You will need to know how fresh fruit credits when making these choices available. The portion size you need to serve may be larger than you think. Let's look at some examples. How do oranges credit? Well, oranges come in different case counts. So the 138 count credits as a half a cup of fruit, whereas the 125 count credits as 5/8 of a cup of fruit. So if you are serving the orange to meet the fruit requirement, you would offer the student a whole orange if you are buying the 138 count. Bananas come in different sizes. A 150 count banana credits as a half a cup, which is the whole banana. Apples are a denser fruit, and depending on their case count, credit as 1 cup of fruit. So if you cut a 125 to 138 count apple in half, it will credit for a half a cup of fruit. And grapes come in different sizes, but typically 7 large grapes would be equivalent to 1/4 of a cup of fruit. For detailed information on portion sizes, I recommend you use the Food Buying Guide. This guide is the authoritative source of food yield information for all child nutrition programs. It has the information to help you determine the right quantity of foods to purchase, the appropriate types of food for your program, and the specific contribution each food makes towards meal pattern requirements. This guide is available on the internet at foodbuyingguide.fns.usda.gov. It's available as a publication, an interactive online tool, and also as a mobile app that you can use on your phone. Snack-type fruit products such as fruit leather and fruit shapes do not count as a fruit component in a reimbursable meal. Children need to be able to recognize the actual piece of fruit they are eating. If you choose to purchase frozen fruit, it must be in water or unsweetened juice with no sugar added. Both these requirements apply to breakfast and lunch meal pattern. Now let's talk about vegetables. Again, the daily and weekly requirements are the same for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8. 3/4 of a cup daily and 3 3/4 cup weekly. However, for grades 9 through 12, the daily minimum requirement is the same as fruit, 1 cup daily and 5 cups weekly. Fruits and vegetables are separate components at lunch, and you must serve the minimum required portion of each. If you choose to offer a vegetable juice, make sure it contains 100% vegetable juice. How would a purchased vegetable soup credit that has no child nutrition label? You may serve it, but a 1 cup serving would only credit as 1/4 of a cup of vegetable, unless you have a child nutrition label that states otherwise. Or you modify by adding more vegetables and creating a recipe to document how the combined items credit. As stated before, dried beans and peas may credit as a meat alternate or as a vegetable, but not both. The minimum serving size of a vegetable that credits is 1/8 of a cup, the same as fruit. Examples of non-creditable items that do not contribute to the meal pattern are potato chips, commercial spaghetti sauce, and commercial salsa. However, the U.S. Foods commodity does have a spaghetti sauce and a salsa that has a child nutrition label. If these items are used, they will credit based on the CN label. When serving items like potato chips or other extras that do not contribute to the meal pattern, the menu planner needs to consider how they contribute to the dietary specifications for that meal. Vegetable offerings during the week must come from the following 5 vegetable subgroups: dark green, red orange, dried beans and peas, starchy, and other. The vegetable subgroups have weekly requirements and no daily requirements. We will go through each of the subgroups. A vegetable subgroup handout is provided with this training or can be found on our website. The food buying guide is also a resource for these subgroups. Many schools have introduced fruit vegetable bars, which makes it easier to meet the vegetable subgroup requirements by offering a variety of vegetables from the different subgroups on the bar. So the vegetable subgroup can be offered on the main serving line or on a self-serve bar, but not required to be in both places as long as the bar is part of the reimbursable meal. If you have students that do not have access to the bar, where you are providing vegetable subgroup requirements, then you would need to make sure that the menu for those students meets the weekly requirements. The dark green vegetable subgroup portion sizes is the same for all grade groups, 1/2 a cup per week. Examples of vegetables in this group include broccoli, romaine lettuce, spinach, and other leafy greens such as kale and turnip greens. So if you have 1/2 a cup of broccoli on the menu for the week, you are in compliance. Another way would be to offer a salad mix on the fruit vegetable bar daily, or offering smaller portions of dark green vegetables on multiple days during the week. It's important to note that raw and cooked greens credit differently if you are serving them on the line. Raw leafy salad greens credit at half the volume served. That's because leafy greens do not pack neatly into a measuring cup. So a 1 cup portion credits as 1/2 a cup of vegetable. One thing to keep in mind is that all lettuce does not credit as dark green vegetable. Iceberg lettuce is a good example. It credits in the other vegetable subgroup. Cooked leafy greens such as spinach are equal to the volume served. The red-orange vegetable subgroup has 2 different weekly requirements by grade group. The K through 8 is 3/4 of a cup over the week, and for grades 9 through 12, a larger portion of 1 1/4 cups over the week. A few common examples typically used in school menus include tomatoes, carrots, sweet potatoes, red peppers, and pumpkin. You can refer to the vegetable in subgroup handout for more options. For schools that offer fruit vegetable bars, if you offer a variety of red-orange choices over the course of a week, such as baby carrots, cherry tomatoes, or red peppers, you will meet this requirement. If all students do not have access to the self-serve bar, then you plan to offer a variety of red-orange vegetables over the course of the week to meet the requirement for each grade group on the serving line. Other entree menu items that include red-orange vegetables are pizza, spaghetti sauce, that have a child nutrition label. The dried beans pea subgroup portion size is the same for all grade groups, 1/2 a cup for the week. We sometimes refer to the dried beans peas group as legumes. Examples include a variety of beans such as kidney, navy, pinto, refried beans, and garbanzo beans. There is a large selection listed on the vegetable handout. An easy way to meet this requirement is to offer a half a cup of baked beans on the menu, but I would encourage you to introduce students to a nice variety. Garbanzo beans can be seasoned and baked and offered as a salad topping on the self-serve bar. Or hummus can be made available as a vegetable dip. There are numerous recipes on USDA's website to provide different ideas. Split peas are in this group, but do not confuse them with canned or frozen peas. They are not considered legumes, and they are in the starchy vegetable subgroup. Same with canned or frozen green beans. They are considered other vegetables. This is probably the most challenging vegetable subgroup to include in your school menu, but with a little creativity and a variety in your menu planning approach, your students will be introduced to a healthy vegetable choice. The next vegetable subgroup are the starchy vegetables. The portion size is the same for grades K through 12, a half a cup for the week. Some of the commonly served items in this subgroup include potatoes, corn, green peas, and green lima beans. Refer to the chart for more ideas on some new items to try. Jicama is a crunchy vegetable students may enjoy trying. Another is canned hominy. This is a field corn that has been soaked in lime solution. When served whole, it credits as a vegetable. When dried and ground, it's known as grits. We know this is the easiest subgroup to meet, but I would encourage you to limit these items and offer a large variety from all of the vegetable subgroups. There is no limit on the amount that you can serve from this subgroup, as long as you meet all of the other subgroup requirements for the week. The other thing to consider are the amounts of calories and fat when determining the frequency in serving potatoes, especially the frozen varieties. If you offer French fries on the menu too frequently, you would exceed the dietary specifications for sodium and fat. The last group is the other vegetable subgroup. The group contains all the vegetables that don't fit in the other subgroup categories. The weekly portion size requirement for grades K through 8 is a half a cup per week, and for grades 9 through 12, 3/4 of a cup per week. The list is long, so I would refer to the chart to see all the vegetables that fall into this group. Some common examples include cabbage, green beans, cucumbers, iceberg lettuce, mushrooms, onions, and many more. How do mixed vegetable blends count towards the vegetable subgroup requirement? A classic mix is when there are too many vegetables to credit towards the minimum 1/8 of a cup each. For example, 5 vegetables in the mix. The California blend typically contains carrots, broccoli, and cauliflower. Since there are 3 vegetables in the blend, we could determine how a 3/4 cup serving would credit towards the subgroup. We can count the carrots toward 1/4 of a cup of red, and the broccoli as 1/4 of a cup towards the dark green, and 1/4 of a cup of cauliflower as the other subgroup. If you change the portion size to a half a cup, then you could apply 1/8 of a cup towards each of the vegetable subgroups. The next required food component is the grains component. The minimum daily requirements for grains for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8 is a 1 ounce equivalent. And notice for grades 9 through 12, the minimum daily amount is a 2 ounce equivalent. Even though the daily requirement for grades K through 8 is only 1 ounce equivalent, you will need to plan more in order to meet the weekly requirements. The weekly requirement for grades K through 5 and 6 through 8 is 8 ounces, and for grades 9 through 12, 10-ounce equivalent for the week. The daily weekly requirements provide some flexibility to the menu planner. An easy way to make sure you are in compliance for all grades is to plan a 2-ounce grain equivalent daily. This would meet the daily and weekly requirements for K through 8 and 9 through 12. And remember, these are the minimum amounts you need to serve. You have the option to serve more. What are ounce equivalents? All grain products served in the school meals program must be credited based on ounce equivalent standards. So ounce equivalents designate the contribution a given serving size makes towards the grain component. A 1-ounce equivalent provides 16 grams of creditable grain. There are 2 different ways to determine the amount required to provide a 1-ounce equivalent of grain. By using the grain bread chart, or by determining serving size based on creditable grain content. This is the chart used to determine how a grain item contributes to the meal pattern. This chart is part of the handouts for this session or may be found on our website. Be sure and view the session on calculating and determining grains for school meals program. Another good resource is the food buying guide. At least half of the weekly grains offered must be whole grain rich. Other grains may be offered during the week, but in order to be a creditable grain, they must be enriched. Again, we recommend you view the session on calculating and determining grains. It explains how to identify how whole grain rich products credit. Students like to have choices, so we would encourage you to provide more than one entree choice to students. This will help promote your program and increase participation. All entree choices must meet both daily and weekly meal pattern requirements that you just learned about. Plan entree choices that provide the same meat alternate ounces and grain servings. So for example, a chef salad needs to provide 2 meat alternates and 2 grains. So I may have 2 ounces of chicken and cheese in the salad with an ounce of croutons and a breadstick. A deli sandwich would have 1.5 ounces of meat and a half an ounce of cheese on 2 slices of bread or a bun large enough to weigh 2 ounces. And the last example is a peanut butter uncrustable sandwich. These sandwiches are sold in 2 different sizes, so make sure you know how it credits and meets the requirements for the grades you are serving. The daily requirement for milk at lunch is 8 fluid ounces. Milk must be served as a beverage, and the menu planner must offer at least 2 different varieties. This can be done by offering unflavored milk in a variety of fat choices, skim or 1%, or a flavored milk along with an unflavored milk. Several ways to provide different choices. No other beverages can be promoted as an alternative to milk. In some cases, schools may need to offer a non-dairy beverage as a milk substitute. For example, a student may be lactose intolerant and unable to drink regular milk. The school can offer a lactose-free variety of milk or a non-dairy beverage that meets USDA's criteria. If a substitution is offered, it must have the same nutritional content as cow's milk. Approved varieties of milk substitutes are shown on the Milk Substitutes handout. The link is at the bottom of this page. Juice or water may not be offered as a replacement for fluid milk. There are 4 dietary specifications listed at the bottom of the lunch meal pattern chart. The weekly average requirements are for calories, sodium, saturated fat, and the daily requirement for trans fat is equal to 0. The chart shows the minimum and maximum levels identified for each grade group. These are based on an average for a 5-day week. When planning menus, each day can be over or under the required levels, but should meet the average over the course of a week. USDA requires schools to have signage posted to help students recognize the planned lunch menu for the day for a reimbursable meal. Some schools use a whiteboard so they can write the menu for the day, or you may request a sign from our office, or you could create your own. Another requirement is to make sure students have access to drinking water in the meal service area. This can be done in a variety of ways, by offering pitchers of water or containers where they can serve themselves. If a drinking fountain is available, remember to offer cups so the students can have it with their meal. When planning menus, be sure the foods used to meet meal pattern requirements are creditable. While non-creditable foods do not count towards meal pattern requirements, they can be served in addition to the required components of a reimbursable meal. The addition of these types of food items adds cost and nutrients to the menu. You are required to track these food items on your daily food production record. Take a look at the creditable and non-creditable foods handout that shows a summary of these items attached with this training or located on our website. Examples of items that you would serve that do not credit as a component are condiments, fruit drinks, cocktails, Funyuns, potato chips, bacon, has no standard of identity, pudding, the milk does not credit towards the milk component, and gelatin. And there are many more suggestions on the list. Now let's take a look at a few meals to see if you can identify those that contain all the required components. Do not be concerned with portion sizes for this exercise. This meal contains ham, au gratin potatoes, green beans, peaches, and milk. Does it contain all the required components? No. This menu is missing a grain. We could add 1-ounce dinner roll, or a 2-ounce dinner roll, or a cookie that credits as a grain. Does this meal have all the required components? Oven-baked chicken, romaine salad, assorted relishes, rice pilaf, and milk. No. This menu is missing fruit. We could add a couple of fruit choices. Students like to make choices, and the 9 through 12 student needs to be offered 1 cup of fruit. So by offering some choices, we would make this a reimbursable meal. This sack lunch contains a turkey cheese hoagie sandwich, sun chips, apple, sugar cookie, and a juice box. Does it contain all the required components? No, we are missing the milk component and the vegetable component. Sun chips are creditable as a grain. Sugar cookie can count towards the grain credit, and there could be a few vegetables on the sandwich, but not enough to meet the 3/4 cup requirement for K through 8 and the 1 cup requirement for 9 through 12. This meal contains a choice of grilled chicken sandwich or a chef salad, potato wedges, baked beans, watermelon, and milk. Does it contain all the required food components? Yes, with the chicken sandwich, possibly with the chef's salad, if served with a grain. Remember, all entrees must provide the same components, so a chef's salad is typically served with a grain such as a roll and croutons or other creditable grain. This meal contains a choice of a hamburger on a bun or Southwest chicken wrap, fruit vegetable bar, and a milk. Does it contain all the required components? Yes, both entrees meet the requirements for a reimbursable meal. Visit Nutrition Services website to access forms and resources and online training. There are lunch production records available under Forms and Resources, and the grain chart is listed under Meal Pattern Requirements. Nutrition Services has a toll-free number, 800-731-2233, and on our website you may find the information for each program specialist in the office. Click on Contact Us to see the individual staff's names, phone number, and email addresses. We are available to answer any questions you have or provide one-on-one support for you and your school program. Thank you for viewing the Lunch Meal Pattern Training.